The modern development scene for the Atari 2600 is filled with exciting gems, and, as with releases from back in the day, many take the form of conversions of arcade classics. Typically without the license, of course. Of the many which have seen release, the first which well and truly made my jaw drop was Spiceware's Draconian, released back in 2017. As the name implies, it's a take on Namco's Bosconian, originally released to arcades in 1981, and one which I'd not really gotten into until recent years. Of course, it's not the first time Bosconian would make it home, whether officially, as with Namco's own conversion to MSX computers, or unofficially, like that version released for Atari 8-bits a few years ago, both of which have been checked out on the channel sometime in the past. As a take on such an early arcade release, it's no surprise to say Draconian has a somewhat simplistic gameplay loop. Within each sector, your goal is simply to clear out the space stations in order to move on to the next. Each station is surrounded by 6 weapon pods, and taking these out is the first way you can destroy one. The second being to shoot the core. Early on, it's a strategy which will let you take them out quickly, keeping you out of harm's way. But it's another story later on, as the core will gain some form of defense, from shielding which opens and closes, giving you only a limited window to land that shot, to the threat of the exterminator ships it'll launch at you. Either way, there are plenty of hazards which get in your way. Those weapon pods aren't just for show, especially as their firepower becomes more intense on later waves. Then of course, there are the patrol and interceptor craft which harass you as well. The more dangerous threat though, comes from the spy ships. These are launched periodically, and must be dispatched quickly when they arrive, or they'll summon continual reinforcements who'll aim to do nothing but try to blow you into a million pieces until the end of the stage. Or they just happen to succeed. Finally, each sector is littered with debris in the form of asteroids and mines. Colliding with either is fatal, but both can be cleared out with ease, so aren't too much of a pain. That's the core of Draconian. Earn as many points as possible by clearing out each sector of space stations, whilst avoiding the hazards and attacks from those enemy craft. Something which helps make this possible is your fighter craft, which is not only incredibly agile, but is armed with cannons firing both in front and behind it. A handy feature which makes strafing down those stations a little less dangerous. It's also incredibly convenient for cutting through swathes of enemy craft as they close in on your tail. Where Draconian offers a serious point of distinction as a home release is with its options. On startup, you're given a fairly modern set of options to play with, presented in a nicely presented menu. Most important is which quadrant you'll battle in. Each offers a different level set, ranging from reproductions of the levels from the original Bosconian game, both from Namco's Japanese version or the more common international Midway one. A third set features levels designed by contributors to the game, and the fourth, populated by ones designed by members from the Atari Age community. Finally, to round it off, the fifth quadrant, yes, that's right, there are 5 quadrants, offers randomised levels. This one has some neat touches for sure, and as odd as it might seem, it actually works surprisingly well, adding to the game and giving you that tougher challenge should you desire it. Beyond that, you've got difficulty levels offering a wide range of experience options, alongside being able to start from any of the first 15 sectors in your chosen quadrant. Both of these go a long way to increasing or reducing the challenge to make it feel right just for you and the experience you crave. Finally, the option for TV type. Whilst classic releases for the 2600 were optimised for a given TV standard, whether NTSC in the US, PAL for Europe and CCAM for France, modern games like Draconian are designed around 60Hz display, which might make things problematic at first for PAL or CCAM console owners, but in fact, the way the Atari 2600 generates its video signal means that 60Hz display is possible, even on those PAL or CCAM systems, provided your output can handle it. The only real difference is the palette available to the console for a given region. And this is what that option allows you. You can plug the same cartridge into a PAL 2600 like I'm doing here, an NTSC one or a CCAM one. Set the option from the menu and get the right approximation of colours for your particular TV region. Well now, if you've not been hip on the modern 2600 scene, I'm sure you're asking how can a machine which was originally designed to play games like Combat or Video Olympics pull this wizardry off? As for the answer, it's down to the cartridge containing additional processing power, something which grew out of the hardware designed for the popular Harmony line of flash cartridges. Now, it might sound like sacrilege for many of you, but the humble 2600 has relied on many unique cartridge enhancements over the years, from the StarPath Supercharger, which lets you load games from cassette tape and offers more RAM, to the DPC chip used in Pitfall 2, which served as the basis of the enhanced capabilities which Draconian relies on. The big feature of this is that it allows for more updates per display scanline, which gives you more detailed visuals on screen. Even with the flicker, which does appear in some cases, the results speak for themselves. Most critically, this doesn't impact the pace of the action. Things remain silky smooth no matter how many players and missiles and other objects are on screen at a time. What truly makes Draconian special though is its audio. Though the sound effects have that typical 2600 flair, which I do approve of, it's the inclusion of speech which greatly adds to the experience. Hearing those alerts, as clear as they are, helps maintain the pacing of the arcade original, especially around those warnings which come up when spy ships happen to appear. Not needing to rely on visual clues for this alone is critical for situational awareness, especially as the gameplay and its action becomes far more intense as you reach those later sectors. Now, despite what the DPC Plus chip can offer, there are some limitations which are still in effect, and that's mainly around the radar display which you get in the bottom of the screen. Though it's not quite as useful as the sidebar you got in the original Bosconian machine, it's still handy, even if only for giving you a high-level overview of how many stations there are left and whether there are incoming squadrons to take you on. What matters the most with a game like this is its playability, and that is where Draconian delivers, in offering both a solid challenge and a variety of options to customize it to suit what you're looking for. From being able to pick your difficulty level, alongside being able to skip those slower early stages, it truly goes a long way into letting you get right into a part of the game which gives you enough challenge depending on how much time you have to spare. What makes an even bigger contribution though are those selectable quadrants. The variety of level maps on offer, though not going to massive depths on a mechanical front, do make for a suitable amount of gameplay to learn and master, especially when it comes to beating your top score on each quadrant, which you'll also see presented when you go back to the main menu between games. Sadly, not saved to the cartridge, which is a minor ding if anything. It's the little details like this which really give home versions of arcade classics their staying power, compared to just firing it up an emulator and playing the arcade original till the cows come home. Draconian is the type of experience which doesn't just show off the amazing work being done at the forefront of the 2600 scene in these days, but is a cracking conversion of a frenetic arcade shooter. Now, I'm not sure it's one that would sell the system to those who aren't already a fan of it, but for those who have space for it in your lives, I can't help but say that Draconian is a gem which is an essential addition to your library, or perhaps to your Harmony cartridge, if you're so inclined. And with that, it's time to sign off, but as always before I do, I just want to say thank you very much for taking another voyage beyond the Scanlines.